Talk later about Gordon Banks and his amazing saves and how much he will be missed by the football community in this country. Now, if you watch television news, you couldn't fail to notice that whenever there is an interview outside Parliament, it is done against a backdrop of shouting protesters, waving flags and placards who demonstrate, of course, on both sides of the Brexit debate. So they want it to go ahead. And they don't.
Traitors! Who's the traitors over there? Who's the traitors over there?
And they want it to go ahead.
Bollocks to the EU! No! We ain't gonna Brexit! We're not gonna Brexit anymore!
Yeah, God, it's lively. And often these different groups are quite close to each other, often in the Westminster area. And we wondered, who are these people with their strong, passionate views who brave the cold every day to stand up for what they believe in? We thought it would be interesting to have two of them in the studio, face to face, to debate with all their passion, maybe actually sort it all out. So my next two guests have a lot in common. They're both about the same age. They both have 4 children. They both have recently become activists. Where they differ is their views on Brexit. I'm joined first by Belinda DeLucy, and your view is that you want us to get out.
I want us to leave. I believe every nation has a right to self-governance.
OK, and next to you is Ernest, and you believe the opposite.
Yeah, I do. I think the EU, I think we're better when we work together with friends. And I have 5 children, by the way.
Oh, 5? OK, so since we wrote this, no?
No,
right,
she's 10.
We were just wrong. OK. So, you've seen each other before, but you've never met.
That's true. I've definitely seen Polly before.
So
Very smiley.
What, just across the road, or how does it work?
Leave and Remain supporters stand pretty much side by side in quite close quarters, so it can get very intense.
And you're going into Westminster every day, is that right, usually?
Yeah, I mean, I don't go every day. Steve Bray has been there since the 4th of September 2017, and I first went and stood outside Parliament on the 1st of February 2016 because I felt so compelled to go. And I tend to come either once a week.
1st of Feb 2016?
Sorry, 2017.
Right, OK.
Yeah, sorry. And I did say the wrong date because it's just been so long. But that was when Article 50, the debate for Article 50 to be triggered. And I literally heard that the debate was happening. And I was in Hereford and I said to my husband, I've got to go and stand outside because I don't feel I have any political representation. Nobody's listening to us.
Understood. We heard the clip of all the protesters. And at the end, it sounded almost like it was punk rock there. And then they were the Brexit lot, right?
There's a lot of singing.
Before we talk in a little bit more detail about what you believe, what is the slogan? What's the key set of words for you, Belinda?
For me, it's leave means leave. It's simple because we were given a vote. We were promised that Parliament would respect that democratic vote, and we've seen the last 2.5 years it worked tirelessly, or the majority of MPs worked tirelessly to sabotage, delay, water down our idea of leaving, so much so that it's going to be just another version of Remain. And we just want to leave, like we were promised.
And what's your slogan?
For me personally, is stop Brexit. It's always been that.
So one is leave means leave and one is stop Brexit.
Yes.
And behind you, you've got this placard, and this is really interesting because it says Political Class of 2019, Epic Fail in Democracy. And when this was brought in, it was brought in by a producer and it was put on a chair, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure whose that is, because you could both be shouting at the politicians. Is that right?
I think we are, and I think the irony is that on the night of the meaningful vote, the first one, when it was voted down, I think both sides felt as though that was a step better for them.
When the deal was voted down.
When the deal was voted down, yes.
We both celebrated together. It was the first time the protesters actually, we were relieved that this deal
So you didn't want Theresa May's deal, Belinda, because you regarded it as a compromise, and you didn't want it because, Polly?
Because it's leaving the EU and it removes our freedom of movement, which is what you'll find that most of the activists on the Remain side, or many of them, that's what they're really passionate about, is freedom of movement. OK, and the banner behind you saying the political class of 2019 have failed, who does it belong to? It belongs to me, a Brexit protester.
Right.
I feel utterly let down by our political class. They can't
seem to implement a democratic vote. There's been so much fighting. Just imagine where we'd be if, after 2.5 years, our political class had united behind the democratic vote that they promised to unite behind. Instead, all this backstabbing, the trickery that's going on, the meetings in Brussels behind our backs, trying to get Brussels to give us the worst deal possible. This is trickery and knavery on a Shakespearean level. It really is. And
sorry, we haven't had the word knavery on the show before, so it's like I've done it for 16 years and we seriously haven't done it. OK, Polly, respond.
Well, I mean, yes, I agree that our political class are failing us at the moment, because the way in which our democracy works, which I believe is really flawed, our democracy, but it works on opposition. That is what we have in this country. And at the moment, there is no opposition. So in order to get the best possible deal or whatever it was that we were going to do, we needed to make sure that there was opposition. And there is no opposition.
Do you mean Jeremy Corbyn's Labour isn't opposing?
I do mean Jeremy Corbyn's Labour. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn desperately seems to want Brexit more than anybody else. I mean, it's just it's just a terrible mess.
Well, his voters do, a lot of them, don't they? That's the thing.
Yeah, but a lot of his party members don't.
Both manifestos were about leaving the customs union single market and respecting the referendum result. And I can't believe that there are MPs sitting there in their seats who have conned the electorate.
They didn't con the electorate. There were so many votes were borrowed. There was a massive campaign which I was part of to make sure that people voted tactically to stop Theresa May getting a massive majority. And loads of Labour MPs, people like Stephen Doughty and names escapes me, but who were supported by their local For Europe organisation. And people went out and canvassed for those. Through her Brexit means Brexit. So the idea that 85% of the country voted for Brexit parties is frankly a nonsense.
Well, it's just your argument that democracy is flawed. Of course it is. I don't disagree with that at all. But the alternative democracy is far, far worse. And we were given that choice. And we weren't given a choice of soft or hard or perhaps or this deal or it was leave. And,
well,
but what does that mean?
Belinda,
what does leave mean?
What it said on the tin. You leave the...
OK, let's say we voted for leave and we knew what we were voting for, Belinda. Because we're in a democracy, that decision then does end up inside the House of Commons. And these elected MPs are allowed to tangle with it, aren't they?
They are.
And that's what they've done.
If I believed that they were in earnest just tangling with trying to get the best deal, that would be different. I don't believe that's their agenda.
Well, they're allowed to smash it to pieces if they want to. That's how it works in a democracy, isn't it?
I think they feel like they have the power to stop a democratic vote because Parliament wants to take back control of Brexit, which I think is ridiculous. It gave the choice to the people decided.
They asked the people for their advice. It was an advisory referendum, and the people advised at that time that they thought that leaving would be a good idea.
But we
Nearly 3 years on...
If we were told if we voted out, we're out.
But that was in
told that really clearly.
But that wasn't what was. That's not what was in the Act of Parliament. That's what came out in a government brochure afterwards.
That's what we read.
But the government doesn't. We live in a parliamentary democracy.
Well, contracts work differently, don't they? If Prime Minister says to you, if you vote out, you're out, then that's it.
But no, because she has to work with Parliament. That's why she went back to the people to try and get a bigger majority, because she knew she didn't have a big enough majority.
So what do you, when you are outside Westminster, Polly, and you're shouting, what are you actually hoping? What's the best outcome? They cancel the whole thing?
Well, I'd like to see Article 50 revoked, but I really would like to see this. I mean, I hate referenda, but I think the only way we could ever settle this is for this to go back to the people with a clean and fair vote, with the money capped. I don't know, but I need to know. I need to just check that we're really sure that this is what we want to do.
It's the kind of patronising talk that I've had, and many Leave voters have had enough of. We didn't know what we were voting for. We're led by xenophobic tendencies. This is all about anti-foreigners. We don't know. We do not need another chance. We need to be re-educated.
I'm not suggesting that at all.
It's again and again since 2016 we have had the referendum discredited. We have been dehumanised, degraded by the political class. In fact, the political and business class sneer at those who treasure democracy and sovereignty as obstacles for money and profit and trade, and it's got to stop.
Stay with us. Let's play some music. I know people are ringing. They want to speak to you, so call us. You can talk to Polly or Belinda or both. BBC Radio 2. They'll give you up. So we've got Belinda and Polly here, and it's been a little bit tense at times. What was the disagreement there about?
About whether we need vegetables or not.
Was that because you were just saying...
No lettuce, no problem.
Yeah, and I'm saying that in Herefordshire, the farmers are not planting crops. They're not planting vegetables. I know of 2 farms where the vegetables are not being planted because they don't know how they're going to be harvested. So instead of having mixed vegetables and fruit on these farms, they're now putting in monoculture arable crops.
OK. Alan Kershaw in Scunthorpe says, I think these protests are a waste of time. The politicians aren't bothered and they're letting absolutely everyone down. You might even agree with that.
I wanted to protest because I was fed up of the media hijacking the narrative of what Brexit supporters were and what they represented, and all we saw on the news was sea of blue European flags outside Parliament.
Because we've been there for so long.
And there was no one, because you lost the referendum, many Leave voters felt very, very strongly that why should they have to protest? They won the referendum. It was hard to get people down to protest.
So have you been a protester in other contexts or not? No,
never. This is the first time I felt so strongly about it.
And I do think it's really funny that Leave are protesting because they did win, so I can't understand why they feel they need to...
But it's not being implemented. We're being tricked
But it definitely is being implemented. I mean, that withdrawal agreement definitely is about leaving the EU.
We might end up in the customs union still. I think that's what you guys are worried about.
Yeah.
OK, Jeff Phillips in Bridgend says, why aren't these people in work?
I am.
If they spend all that time demonstrating outside Parliament, how do they finance themselves?
I'm a student studying at university doing a Masters in European Union law, so I'm lucky I have the time to come and protest.
I run a bed and breakfast and I do outside catering. It's my quiet time of year. And I work all weekends. And so, do you know what? I'm allowed a day off or 2 in the week.
OK. Simon Peppercorn in Leominster says, when we regularly see disgraceful behaviour in Parliament, is it any wonder these protesters behave in the same manner? But I don't think you've done anything disgraceful today.
I don't think we've done anything.
Neither do I. There's a small group
Yeah.
that can cause trouble, but they'd cause trouble anyway.
And you weren't responsible for the punk rock music there?
No, but it's a good idea.
OK, Angela Ramsell is in North Wales. Hi, Angela.
Hi, Jeremy.
Now, so you've been protesting outside Parliament on which side?
Anti-Brexit, stop Brexit.
So you're with Polly. Do you know Angela, Polly?
I do.
Right. So what would you like to say, Angela?
Just that, on the whole, the problem is when we try to engage with people who want Brexit, in return for our reasoned arguments, we get rhetoric with very little substance in their arguments. So this weekend I was running a Brexitometer stall in Oswestry, and I had one person who said they wanted freedom at any cost at all, because they wanted to have sovereignty. When I showed them on my phone the white paper where Theresa May herself said we've always had sovereignty, they scoffed, became abusive, and then stormed off. You cannot debate with people like that.
No, and there's a guy.
Find common ground.
There was a guy at Westminster last week who said he'd rather eat grass.
Well, what? Rather eat grass than what?
Well, because because they weren't going to be. He'd rather eat grass than not leave the EU.
Than be in the EU.
But it's not. Leavers shouldn't have to constantly explain themselves in detail to Remainers who lost the referendum. Sometimes, as on the Remain side, it's a belief in the system of self-governance for a healthy society to have that very enriched
belief
democratic...
isn't enough. We have something that works now.
For you, but it doesn't work for many
Why
people
doesn't it
who
work?
have had their wages cut, who feel like they're not in control of how
that's
the
our
government is running their
That's
lives.
our government that needs to increase. All the problems that we have now are caused by austerity.
I disagree
and they're not caused by... No. You can't undercut a wage if you have minimum wage and if you have living wage. You can't undercut that. That is illegal to undercut it. So this is about implementing laws that we already have. And it's exactly the same that we have the right... If EU citizens are here and they're not self-supporting, Article 7 means that they can be asked to leave the country, but we don't implement that.
And I tell you why we don't, because Parliament has been infantilised by its membership to the EU. It has its hands tied behind its back.
Belgium doesn't seem to have that problem.
Let
me just bring in another caller. Neil Wilson in Barnsley. Good afternoon.
How you doing, Jeremy?
Who's your question for, Neil?
Well, I can't remember who it is, because I was dumbfounded once I heard what she said, that she couldn't quite believe. She wants to make sure that the people have got it right, what they voted for.
This is Polly the Remainer. Yeah, OK.
Polly, I'm actually a Remainer. Believe it or not, I brought up in a mining community, a real rough place in Barnsley. I now work in London. I've got a fantastic job. I actually voted Remain. But I'm all for democracy, and democracy is what this is about. And if the people voted leave, we must leave. We must give them...
But even knowing everything we know now... Knowing everything we know, knowing what this deal actually looks like.
Yes, because I'll tell you what, I've voted on different occasions. I come from a mining community. I'm from a Labour community. I'll be honest with you. My community where I'm from, if they put a donkey up to represent Labour, it'd get in. That's how bad it is.
Well, it's as bad my way for Conservatives, I have to say.
But let me tell you, I've voted. I was in the armed forces at one time, and I voted for the Conservatives because that's who were looking after me at the time. If the people in my village where I were from knew I'd voted Conservative, they'd have run me out of it. But it's like, what I'm about is democracy.
Yeah, a Democrat first. That's what my mum said. She's a Remainer.
And so am
She's
I.
a Democrat first.
But I'm a Democrat.
Why don't all these MPs put the arguments aside and do what the country's asking?
Absolutely,
because we don't know what we don't know.
But of course we don't know. We're untangling ourselves from 40 years.
So, but we're finished.
Hang on.
If the vote again for Brexit, what are you going to do? Are you going to say?
I would at that point. I would accept it if it was a clean and fair vote.
You can't respect some referendums and not expect others. That's not democracy.
Thank you very much, Dean Neal. Jeff Hitchcock in Derby says, my father is a farmer and landowner. And, oh no, actually, that's a phone mask comment. Sorry, that's got tangled up. That would be fun to put that to you. We need more calls on this, actually. 08000 288 291. We've got the two guests with us, one Brexit, one Remain. And you haven't ever spoken to each other before, but you've seen each other across the street.
Yes.
And you've come, Polly, in a sort of campaigning garb today, a hat and with the badges. Decided the badges on the hats?
Well, the badges on the hat, they just say various things. I haven't got my glasses on, but I've got, Brexit, is it worth it? I've got Brexit sucks. I'm not a bargaining chip. One of the reasons that I campaign more than anything else, I didn't want to do this. This was never my plan. But I'm so appalled at the way that the EU citizens who are here are being treated. And I think settled status is an abomination. For example, I've got a friend, she's been here for 45 years. Right. She's married to a policeman and she's got to apply for settled status.
Well, she can stay, can't she?
Yeah, but she's got to apply to live in her own home. That is not...
Did you bring in placards, Belinda?
Yes, I brought in the political class of 2019 epic fail, and I brought in Brexit will restart Parliament's heart for a Valentine's march on Thursday.
So it's a heart-shaped placard that says Brexit will... I'm just looking. Restart Parliament's heart.
I think Parliament, unfortunately, is a shell compared to what it was. Because of our EU membership, I think parliaments across Europe are weak and our MPs are no longer willing to take responsibility to do governing that we were so used to growing up.
Thank you very much. OK, both of you, thank you. It's 1:30. Thank you for coming in. I think we've enjoyed it. I hope you have too, and listeners at home. We might call it to a halt with the calls and so on and move on. Belinda de Lucy is from the Leave Means Leave campaign. Polly Ernest is from, is it SODEM?
Sodom.
Thank you. The Stand of Defiance.
Stand of Defiance European Movement.
Cheers.